chapter 5. For the leader, upon the Nehilah, a psalm of David. Give ear to my words, O Lord, and consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto you do I pray. O Lord, in the morning shalt you hear my voice. In the morning will I order my prayer unto you, and will look forward. For you art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness. Evil shall not sojourn with you. The boasters shall not stand in your sight. You hatest all workers of iniquity. You destroyest them that speak falsehood. The Lord abhorreth the man of blood and of deceit. But as for me, in the abundance of your loving kindness will I come into your house. I will bow down toward your holy temple in the fear of you. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of them that lie in wait for me. Make your way straight before my face, for there is no sincerity in their mouth. Their inward part is a yawning gulf. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They make smooth their tongue. Hold them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them down in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against you. So shall all those that take refuge in you rejoice. They shall ever shout for joy, and you shall shelter them. Let them also that love your name exult in you, for you dost bless the righteous. O Lord, you dost encompass him with favor as with a shield. All right, let's go back up to the first verse. And once again, we have a psalm, a song for the leader. This is for the one who leads, and we this leader, one who may be leading the band, leading the song, leading the psalm even. This is a psalm of David, a song of David. David was the chosen one. David was the king, and probably the king even at the period he wrote this psalm. David was the creator of instruments, and this one here we'll find in verse 1 is for the leader upon the Nehilah, or the Nehilah. And what that is like a flute. It's a windward instrument, or an instrument that you blow through that has holes in it. And a windward instrument, wind is something when we hear the wind blowing, we usually maybe across something, it makes a noise. We can hear that and call to remembrance, because it's an audible sound of just what that is, what the wind's blowing across. And we'll find out the wind is blowing across time. But we're going to pick it up here in verse 2. Give ear to my words, O Lord, and consider my meditation, or listen to my words, this which I speak, and consider these things, or consider my meditation, these things which I have thought upon my own heart. 3. Hearken unto my voice of my cry, my King and my God, for unto you do I pray. And this prayer even is the meditation of my heart. To hearken unto my voice or my cry is to hear this supplication that we set before the Lord, or David set before God, even in Psalm. My King, who is God, God is the King, and there is really no other King but God himself. And my God, because they are one and the same. David was a king, and an earthly king, and the law was given to David. David was made example out of. And David walked before the Lord, and the Lord knows the inward man, and that's why he chooses him. For, O Lord, in the morning shalt you hear my voice. In the morning will I order my prayer unto you, and will look forward. O Lord, in the morning shalt you hear my voice early. And the morning is when, just as the sun comes up, or when the sun comes up. As the sun comes up, we call it the morning because we've come through the darkness, through this period of night, which is the beginning of every day. The evening begins the day, not the morning. But this morning, when we awaken, at our first awakening, we will give prayer unto God, because, see, we'll find out, God takes no pleasure in the wicked man, this man who has done his or who has been about his day in his boastings or in his thing. But after he has slept, after he has had a clear mind, and the Lord has worked with him upon his bed, we'll find out our prayers are pleasurable to the Lord. He says, I will look forward, or I will be observant even to this. 5. For you art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness. Evil shall not sojourn with you. For God, he is not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, or these that do wickedness. And these are those of the night. Evil or wickedness itself shall not sojourn with God. And that's who thee is, you, God. And the psalm is directed directly to God. For evilness shall not abide, it shall not work with God, but we'll find out evilness is as well, we can say, a work of God. It was the opposite. It is the reaction for transgression. 6. The boasters shall not stand in your sight. You hatest all workers of iniquity. The boasters, and we're going to be talking a little more about the boasters. These are those ones that work wickedness with their mouth. They exalt themselves, and they stand, we'll find out. But they're not going to stand in the sight of God. God is righteousness. God is justice. God is true understanding, see. And these would be those ones who work wickedness for gain, or the opposite of that. God hates all these workers of iniquity, and iniquity is perversion. It's a twisting, it's a distortion of understandings. We'll find out the true understanding is the law of God. And that was something he gave you in the beginning. 7. You destroyest them that speak falsehood. The Lord abhors the man of blood and deceit. God destroys. You destroy them that speak falsehood. Well, they condemn themselves with their own mouth, see, and with their own tongue when they speak deceit. I am still amazed today by the and awed by the confusion of people who. These people are so obvious that do these things. These people exist today as well as in the time of David. These ones the Lord abhors, these ones who speak falsehood, they do it for gain. They are wicked men. They are men of blood and deceit. This blood is evilness. They destroy. Well, the Bible calls them murderers. God called them murderers. And we're not talking about just murderers of the flesh, but these murderers of souls as well. These hunters of souls. These ones that really have no business handling the Word of God itself. But they work deceit. Their trickery is in their mouth. Their tongue is. We'll find out. 8. But as for me, in the abundance of your loving kindness will I come into your house. I will bow down toward the holy temple in the fear of you. But as for me, and as for David as well, I can see the abundance of God's loving kindness, abundance of God's mercy will I come into God's house. And that's God's abode. That's God's understanding. Because God give it to everybody, and I know that. And sometimes a lot of people don't understand that because no one's ever told them that God put the law into you, and that's how you understand the law so well. But this holy temple, that's the hallowed temple, that place where it's set aside, it belongs to God anyway, is where we bow down and we humble ourselves in our own understandings even, because of the fear of God. The fear, more of a respect of God, because we know these understandings of God, and God has placed great warning about his understandings throughout the book. There's only a few that is allowed to handle the Word of God. There's only a few that's allowed to instruct the Word of God. God give us the law, and that we can partake of. 9. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of them that lie in wait for me. Make your way straight before my face. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of them that lie in wait. Because of them that lie in wait for me. And these are, once again, these ones that we're talking about, these subtle insinuations of these, anyway, We can at least take it for that. But they lie in wait for me. Well, they set traps, and we'll find out. They bait them with every pleasant thing. And a lot of people think they're great just because they speak great things, but we'll find out. They're they It's a trap. It's a trap. And they've laid wait for your soul. They've laid wait for your flesh. And to give in to these is to just fall into their trap. But God, see, has the ability to make his ways straight. And we'll find out. Make your way straight before my face. These things are made plain to me. Make these things plain to me. Let me open my eyes, or even my understandings, that I could see these things. 10. For there is no sincerity in their mouth. Their inward part is a yawning gulf. Their throat is an open sepulchre, and they make smooth their tongue. Once again, we're talking about these that do those things, and they talk about God. But what God is it? See, God told me, you shall make yourself no image. You should not have an image of God. And we are really not allowed to make images of God in other people's understandings. But there's no sincerity in their mouth. They're not sincere. They ain't trying to help me. They're trying to help their pocketbook. The inward part is a yawning gulf. This yawning gulf, it's like to be open wide, and their throat is an open sepulchre. It's like that which is spread out, opened up. This throat, this opening of the grave. See, this open grave. It's an open grave is something that's waiting for somebody to be cast into it. It's a pit. It's ignorance, is what it is. A whole man-made. It's his understanding, and people fall into these things. Don't let nobody deceive you. God gives you understanding. God gives you knowledge. God gives you wisdom, and he gave it to you in the beginning. But we'll find out they make smooth their tongue. Oh, they have a lot of fancy words. They little Kool-Aid and some cookies to go with it, too. 11. Hold them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them down in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against you. Hold them guilty, and you can count on it. God does hold them guilty. We'll find out they've done this. It's been going on for thousands of years. It's the ignorance of men. It perpetuates because of the lack of understanding. God said, teach your children. Teach your children my law. And when we don't, this is what happens. We get all these ones who have a lot of words who ain't going to give you no understanding. Let them fall by their own counsels. And they do, and they have, and they will continue to. Cast them down in the multitude of their transgressions. The multitude of their transgressions, for who wants to sit and count? It's not mine to judge. It belongs to God, and we'll find out. Judgment is God's. God does hold them guilty, and that's why they're in their transgressions. And these transgressions are the trespasses. We find when we trespass. Trespass is to go against the law of God. See, that's a trespass, to come against an ordinance, a statute, or the limitation, against the border, the gate, the wall, whatever you want to call it. It's the law of God. To transgress that, because they have rebelled. They have rebelled. They're coming against God. We've heard about it many times. 12. So shall all those that take refuge in you rejoice, and they shall ever shout for joy, and you shall shelter them. Let them also that love your name exult in you. And we'll find out God does. He is the refuge that we take refuge in. God, because we know that, they may come, but we'll find out God is going to break them of the habit. And that's what the overall intent is to do. And God shelters those that observe his understanding. There is a certain amount of shelter there, and it's through the blessing, through the overall period of time. And that's what the instrument's doing. It's reminding us, bringing us back to that understanding that there is a period of time of joy, that when God shelters, then there's an understanding of God's shelter. And those that love God's name shall exalt in God, shall be lifted up, or even protected by God. 13. For you dost bless the righteous, O Lord. You dost encompass him with favor as with a shield. For God does bless the righteous. And that's the just, the sata. And that's those that are just, those that make their way just before the Lord, those that hear God's words, they hear God's understandings, and they know that God did put it on their heart. God give it to them from the beginning. It's a witness when we hear it. And that's the law. That's the words that we're looking for. And they make sense. We'll find out, because God does encompass him that he favors, even as with the shield. And that shield has been the covenant since the beginning. It always will be. That is the shield. That is our protection. We're going to move to Psalm 6. Turn and return